Hey, it's Rolly with GITM Recaps. The anime kicks off with the introduction of 4 players and their battle against 1200 players, including the strongest, named Queen. After a power-packed match, Queen is defeated by these 4 players. A young boy is introduced as Sora, a game-obsessed NEET with a communication disorder, and his younger sister Shiro. These 2 siblings are the infamous 4 players known as the Blank. After the introduction, an email is received by Sora, and the person that sent the email knows their identity. In the email, there is a challenge attached for a chess match. Shiro, who has a perfect memory of all possible combinations of the game, ends up beating the person on the other end of the screen, which sends an intriguing message asking them their view about the world. This leads into an inner monologue by Sora where he states his view that the world is nothing but a bad game with no defined rules and boundaries. The unknown person sends a message asking if they would like to go to a world where everything is decided by games of set rules they are so fond of. After a while they agree. Then the siblings are transported by a celestial entity to the world of games discord, where everything from national borders to the outcome of people's lives hinges on simple games regulated by 10 commandments. The rules of this world. Tet, the god of play, is the ruler of this world. After winning a war waged between gods and the distant past, he is the one who gave the 10 commandments to the 16 races of this world. Sora and Shiro move forward to the capital of the kingdom of Elkia, which is in the process of electing a new king through a gambling tournament. A woman introduces us to Stephanie Dola, the granddaughter of the previous king, who seems to be losing against the girl named Clammy. Sora goes on to challenge the woman and wagers his and Shiro's life on a game of poker. The woman cheats to get a full house, yet Sora wins with a royal straight flush by cheating as well, but very discreetly. Sora then decides to rent a room, after which the siblings notice Stephanie is about to lose to Clammy, who seems to be cheating. Sora tells Stephanie quietly in her ears of the same, and the siblings head to their room. Defeated, Stephanie shows up blaming Sora for her defeat because he never told her how Clammy cheated. Sora instead annoys her enough for her to try to slap him. He then proposes that they start a game to resolve their differences. A game of rock, paper, scissors where Sora says he'll only play paper. The terms of the game are that she'll tell Stephanie anything she wants and would even kill himself if she wins, but if he wins she'll do anything he says, and if the game is a draw he'll give her a hint as to how the girl cheated, and Stephanie would have to do a small favor for the siblings. Simple enough. Well, if he uses anything but paper and wins, the game is considered a draw. The only way for him to win is by using paper, while Stephanie uses rock. The game begins. Stephanie tries to outsmart Sora, ends up in a draw, and hence owes them a small favor. The favor Sora asks is for her to fall in love with him, as his inner virgin couldn't miss the chance. After a scolding from Shiro for that awful favor, Stephanie seems to have hard eyes for Sora through the power of the commandments. After a little fan service, Sora gets thrown out of the room away from Shiro, and both of them immediately deteriorate into simpletons, something duly noted by Stephanie as a symptom of the siblings being out of each other's sights. After a trip to the palace, Stephanie reveals that the human race is called Humanity while the other races are called Exceed. They are positioned by the affinity for magic, with humans ranked at 16th with 0 affinity, as they lack spirit circuits that let beings connect with the origin of magic. Stephanie reveals that it's also the reason why she couldn't beat Clammy, as she couldn't see the magic used. Meanwhile, Sora believes that it is not an excuse and heads to a library where Shiro proceeds to learn the entire language of humanity in a heartbeat. Realizing that Shiro has the genius level intellect and Sora has great negotiation skills, she believes that they might be able to save Elkia. Stephanie says she wanted to be the queen to show that her grandfather, the late king, was right about the humanity's true potential. The trio meets Clammy prior to the coronation after a confrontation where Clammy berates Stephanie and her grandfather. Sora states his intentions to become the next king. He crashes the coronation and says that a fraudster conspiring with the elves isn't qualified for the throne. His disagreement is met with a challenge by Clammy to play poker. Sora agrees on the condition that it will be without the help of Clammy's elf partner. Clammy denies her allegiance and says that she'll play another game without the elf. Sora reveals that the tournament had too many loopholes and could easily be manipulated by other nations. He boldly states that Clammy will now use magic to cheat that nobody can detect, as she would believe that Sora has the support of another breed. He hypothesizes that the game would not be fundamentally unbeatable to avoid raising suspicions, and the sibling duo resolves that they will not lose. Climbing shows up and tells the trio in private that she made an alliance with the Elven Guard to ensure that humanity survives under the protection of that race. Sora refuses to give up on the game, and so Clammy leads them to a cathedral. The next game is a game of chess, but where the pieces have their own will. Shiro begins the game, but only after Sora states that they will be allowed to rotate between games after the first move. It's glaring that the pieces move according to the will of the player's leadership potential, meaning that the pieces can move further than their conventionally allotted moves and completely ignore an order. This leads to Shiro at a severe disadvantage as her pieces refuse to move. Sora steps in. His riveting speech leads to an extreme boost in their morale, even with Clammy using elf magic to boost her troops or pieces' morale. Sora's strategy causes the tables to turn before Clammy proceeds to use brainwashing magic to turn Sora's pieces to her own. This leads to some turmoil for the team before Sora uses his dating sim skills and converts the enemy queen to his own after a boost from Shiro and inciting a rebellion within Clammy's ranks. He defeats her. After Clammy's defeat, the coronation commences, but there can't be two kings. Shiro refuses to let Sora be king since he could make harem. Sora refuses to let Shiro become king just because, and so a battle between the two begins. 500 rounds, 158 wins, 158 losses and 184 ties, and a game of cards later they realized that there was nothing in Commandment 7 stating there could only be one representative, so they both end up being the kings. The duo tackled the nation's problems by making the ministers play a game of rock, paper, scissors and ordering them to lose on purpose. The reward for the win would be that the ministers could no longer conspire. Sora gives a rousing speech highlighting the weaknesses and strengths of the humanity, during which the duo received the race piece identifying them as the sole representative of their race. They end the speech with a call to arms declaring war against every country in the world. The declaration of war caused Stephanie to lose her mind due to fear of a foreign attack, but Blank had everything thought out and assured her that the four nations would be more suspicious of each other, trying to determine which nation was backing humanity and hence removing the chance for an attack. The duo are reading a book about Flugel, inhabitants of Phantasma of Ondheim. The book states that the Flugel have a thirst for knowledge. Sora considers whether they could be won over using the knowledge from his previous world, but before the thought could nurture, the god Tet shows up. He asks them what they think of this world. Sora finds it ideal and asks whether simple games could win the position of god. Tet replies that to challenge God to a game a person would have to defeat the rest of the races, so the next goal for Blank is to conquer the world. Steph barges in on the duo hiding in a decrepit room. After a long reading session, the duo's lazy behavior leads Steph to challenging Sora to a game of blackjack. If Steph wins, Sora will become a decent person. Sora identifies that Steph is cheating through a false shuffle and reverses the tables by counting the card and wins. They later go for an outing and we see the new kings interact with the community while Steph wears a dog cosplay costume because of losing the previous game. We get some lore from Sora about the werbeasts. After a walk, Steph challenges Sora to another game, but Shiro intervenes. Steph loses again, and Shiro gains her panty after a few more game challenges and losing more of her clothes. Sora tells staff that there's no such thing as luck in a game as long as knowledge is involved. Steph realizes that Sora has not been loitering around, but rather the duo were gathering information so they could win for a manatee of Ondheim. Comes up that floating city in the sky. Steph reveals that previously they lost their library to the county. After some reprimanding, the duo moves forward with the intent to challenge the Flugel. Jabril, one of the Flugel, is challenged by Blank, who gives a brief history on the Flugel. Sora wagers 40,000 books stored in a tablet from another world on their end. After confirming there are other worlders, she agrees to accept the game while betting everything she has. The game is materialization word chain, the rules being that the players can't use a word that has been used. They must answer in 30 seconds, and if they can't continue they'll lose. Also, fictional objects and concepts don't count. Anything stated in the game that isn't in the room will appear in the room, and anything that is will disappear. The game starts and Shorosh says hydrogen bomb and it appears. Gibril counters with a high-level spell named Peculiant, and we basically get the gist of this high-stakes game. After a few rounds, Gibril states that she's merely humoring the two out of curiosity and could end the game at any time. The challenge reveals Sora's all-knowing grin, and he states lithosphere, the surface of a planet with spirit circuits removed. Jabril starts free-falling into a 6,000-degree core. After oxygen is removed, the duo kiss for circular breathing and remove the atmosphere. Jabril finds a way around the soundless world and burning land and counters by using magic to state the next word through a page. Sora counters by using column force. Jabril realizes that this was his plan from the first move. The extreme level of foresight leads to Blank's victory. Sora states that he'll let Jabril use the library and read the books on his tablet. Either way, the Braille responds by turning him into the Flugel's new master. Jabril is giving information to our duo about the Federation, including how she once challenged the werbeasts and lost. It seems that information about the game was removed as part of the game's wagers, so the duo can't strategize prior. The team starts gathering more information. Meanwhile, it's revealed that Elkia has lost 8 times, and with it half of their territory under the prior king. Sora rants about the foolish king and humanity losing so much, causing Stephanie to start crying from his harsh words and running out, leaving him with his guilt for hurting her. Stephanie is reminiscing about her memories with her grandfather while holding a key meant to be given to potential saviors of humanity. Then Jibril shows up and asks Steph to come back to the library. She goes and overhears Sora talking to Jibril about why the king challenged the werbeasts 8 times, trying to find a reason for the seemingly absurd amount of challenges. He still believes in the potential of humanity due to Shiro and the numerous accomplishments of humanity, and hence their potential deserves recognition. Overhearing this, Steph reconsiders her prior feelings and gives Sora the key entrusted to her by her grandfather. Sora then opens up a secret room. The room holds the diary of the last king. Sora deciphers the contents of the book and that all the challenges were meant to gather information. The team head over to the Eastern Federation's Ika embassy to see Hatsu Izuna as the team is guided into the building by Ino to where Izuna resides. She's revealed as the granddaughter of the mind-reading Ino, an ability rumored to be possessed by the werbeasts. Sora states that he wants to challenge the beasts, wagering Izuna's panties with Steph's on the line. Of course that was but a test to see whether the werbeasts could truly read minds. If they could, they would know that the real wager is the chance to wipe his memories of how all their games work. He determines that cold reading is what the werbeasts use to read minds, utilizing their amazing senses. The duo reveals to the werbeast council that they figured out that the nation had developed a video game through deciphering the clues in the king's diary. Sora challenges the werbeast and wagers all of humanity and his race peace. A loss of a race peace means being denied from all commandments and making the race equal to animals. The entire country expresses their dissatisfaction, but as long as blank other representatives, the game will continue. Sora talks to Shiro about their promise and that they are one before disappearing in static. Shiro narrates her history, a super intelligent girl in an orphanage playing games before meeting a family with a young boy named Sora. The image cuts and Shiro wakes up with Sora partially disappearing from her memories and the world turning black and white. Shiro runs to the room where Sora should be but is nowhere to be found. Jibril comes up and Shiro asks her who her masters are. Jibril replies that Shiro is her master. Sora seems to have disappeared from everyone's memory, beautifully illustrated by the constant grayscale and the music cutting out. Shiro's loneliness overcomes her as she's forced to believe that her memories of Sora are false, but blank is one she can't forget. She says aloud that blank never loses, and the grayscale shifts to the world of color. We know Shiro affirms that Sora does exist. The trio realize a day and a half has passed with memories of Sora gone. Shiro starts talking about what Sora said prior to disappearing. She suddenly realizes that the game may have wagered stealing each other's existence. A game between Sora and Clammy. The scene shifts to an interaction between Sora and Clammy wagering their existences in a game and complete rights over their partners. The interaction is something Shiro is seeing in a dream. Shiro realizes that the game may still be underway. She discovers Othello stones on the floor, being a part of the game that Sora and Clammy are currently playing. Shiro realizes she's participating in a game, and we see Sora telling Clammy that their partners will play if the other can't anymore. Even though Shiro can't see the board, she can tell what Sora would want her to do. Dora forgoes his existence so Shiro can take his place, and Shiro picks up where he left off, making all calculations. She plays the 3 Othello stones one after another, affirming Sora's existence, winning the game and bringing him back to the real world. That gave me goosebumps. Sora reappears and the two siblings have a heartfelt reunion. Sora has won the game and gains Clammy's memories and alters the elf memories to make her his spy, establishing that Sora's colluding with any of the other nations. Clammy grants him her trust as well. After gaining Clammy's eels and feeling the ball in support, everyone begins their introductions. It's revealed that Clammy is Phi slave, as is the norm for Elven Guard to bind lower ranking beings to them. Of course Phi doesn't like the fact that she has to treat Clammy as a slave, even though she believes Clammy is her friend. The next day the king heads off to Izuna's house. Hino stands in wait and guides the players. Sora puts a special spell on Stephanie right before the game. The game begins with the Kingdom of Elkri represented by Sora, Shiro, Stephanie and Gibril against the Federation represented by Izuna, Ulshante, Clammy and Phi. Stand on guard, alerting Ino so no obvious cheats are used by the werbeasts. The premise of the game is a fictional place based off of Tokyo. The players are given love guns and bombs to shoot women after them who disappear while giving the players their love power. The ammo is the player's own love power. However, if Izuna shoots one of the protagonists, they become her love slave. The goal is for Izuna to submit. Izuna and Shiro are pitted against each other. Shiro starts pressuring Izuna, who runs away and jumps off a building, but Sora is stationed as a sniper with Jibril in pursuit. Izuna dodges all attempts to subdue her. Ino is in fact guiding Izuna from the shadows. Izuna counters and brings the team on the defensive, and she seems to be having a lot of fun playing a game she deemed deemed as something far from it and just a responsibility. Meanwhile, Shiro is calculating a way to win. She asks Sora if he trusts her and proceeds to block a shot from Mizuna, becoming her slave and now standing against Sora. Jabril flies Sora to safety. Jabril heads off to buy time for Sora to calculate a way to win. Sora is now in a pinch with Shiro on his tail. He somehow avoids her and heads to the roof of a building. He ultimately lets himself get cornered by Shiro there. He tackles Shiro and free falls off the building. Izuna attacked, but it's revealed that since the start Shiro was never under Izuna's control. Shiro aims and shoots Izuna while Gibril does the same. As Izuna is about to be caught, she transforms to dodge the bullet. The excitement of the match leads Izuna to use an ability few where beasts possess blood destruction. Shiro and Sora run. Sora takes over to bring his bluffs to work. He charges towards Izuna, predicts her movements and dodges the first 2 bullets. His predictions go awry at the 4th shot and we see both the siblings get hit square in the forehead. A perfect headshot. Izuna starts calming down and her ability dissipates when she believes she's won, but she gets hit in the back by Stephanie. Everything is revealed to have been carefully calculated from the start when Sora placed the spell on Stephanie. With that, the winner is the Kingdom of Elkia. The Werebeast's loss leads Izuna to a sense of guilt for having enjoyed the game where her people were at stake, but the duo comfort her. But the smiley Izuna takes the hero's hand to get up, stating that she won't lose next time. The team heads over to a bath with Izuna and Aino in tow. Stephanie rushes in to tell Sora that the Eastern Federation moved their technology and personnel off the continent prior to the game. Sora states that he already knew. Then he states that the game isn't over while referring to the designated representative of the Eastern Federation, the Shrine Priestess. The priestess welcomes the heroes to her shrine, then states that it was all within her calculations that Elven Guard would get involved, but what she didn't expect was the involvement of a Van Time. Jabril was the one who influenced the Van Time. The priestess then challenges Sora to a game. Sora chooses the game of a simple coin toss. The priestess starts laughing at the proposition over the fact that even though half of her life was destroyed by 2 humans, it all comes down to a coin toss. If Sora wins, Alkia gets all of the Eastern Federation's territory, whereas if the priestess wins, the Werebeasts get the right half to self-rule and guarantees the rights and resources. The priestess uses blood destruction and determines tails will be the winning bet. The coin falls and gets stuck upright in the ground, resulting in a draw. Sora made the result as it was by shifting the plate under his foot. He states that the result is either they both win or they both lose. A double win means that both continents would share resources while the Werebeasts stay self-ruled under what would now be known as the Elkia Federation. The priestess states that even if the nations unite, Elven Guard would still wage war against the Werebeasts. Sora of course intends to defeat them when they do. In hindsight, Sora altered Fi's memories, so she reports the wrong information about the game held by the Werebeasts, already preparing to get the Elven nation under his command. Moving towards the end of the anime, the priestess asks what the siblings intend to do now, as from the start their aim was to beat the one true god Tet. We see Sora asking the priestess whether she has won, after which the priestess summons the old dudes, ranking first among the Exceed face to face with one of the strongest beings in Disboard. We already know what Blink had in mind, a challenge